So the Brooklyn Nets have shockingly fired Kenny Atkinson. That was not what I expected to see this morning, but here we are. So the Nets won last night by like 25 points over the Spurs, played their best game in a while, and then you wake up and see Kenny Atkinson has been relieved of his duties, and it makes no sense to me right now. I mean, Kenny's been here since the 2016-2017 season, had a record of 118 and 190. It wasn't always pretty, and I know his record isn't that good, but then again, he was playing with guys like Quincy Acey and Sean Kilpatrick and like Randy Foye, so I mean, I understand why the record's not good, but he was a big reason for the culture changing here and whatnot, so I actually am sad to see him go, and it still doesn't make sense to me. The only thing we got is that it was a quote saying some Nets players wanted Atkinson gone, and there's no specific players that we really got, and of course people are going to throw out Kyrie Irving's name, and I guess rightfully so, because that's the reputation he has now, but I don't think Kyrie Irving's a coach killer. I don't think he's gotten the coach fired yet. Brad Stevens is still with the Celtics, and I don't think Ty Lue, like, it wasn't really Kyrie's fault that Ty Lue was gone, if I remember correctly, so I just don't get it. I'm trying to think of which players would want him gone. I mean, I can't see players being outspoken like Jared Allen. I can't see like Joe Harris. I can't see like Garrett Temple. I can't see guys like that. I mean, even Karis LeVert. I can't see those type of guys being outspoken about Kenny Atkinson in a negative way. So if I had to guess as to which players would speak badly about Kenny Atkinson and wanted him gone, I would honestly guess Spencer Dinwiddie and probably DeAndre Jordan, because Dinwiddie's been here the whole time. I think maybe he came in halfway through Kenny's first year. He's been here for 3 years with Kenny Atkinson. So, I mean, those two definitely know each other very well. And sometimes Dinwiddie doesn't have the best body language out there, and maybe he was fed up with Atkinson. I really have no idea. This is just me guessing. And DeAndre Jordan's a veteran who could be outspoken, so that's just a guess. I mean, look, I could be completely wrong. Maybe it was Jared Allen who said something wrong, but I just doubt it. But, yeah, it's just me guessing. And, you know, it just sucks because Kenny Atkinson, I mean, this Nets team was in a very, very, low point at, when Kenny Atkinson came here. I mean, back in the 2016-2017 season, the Nets were awful. They won 25, 26 games, whatever it was, and, the Nets didn't have their own draft pick for a 3-year stretch, or their own first-round pick for a 3-year stretch, and then we see guys like Jason Tatum and Colin Sexton, who hasn't turned out that great yet, but, seeing Jason Tatum from our draft pick go to a different team, especially the Celtics, just hurts a lot, and this team was in a bad spot. I mean, as I said, we had Sean Kilpatrick and Randy Foye and Trevor Booker, all these type of guys, and Thomas Robinson at one point playing some big minutes here, and, it was a bad place for the Nets, and then Kenny Atkinson, I think he was a big part of the Nets making the playoffs last year. I know a lot of it was D'Angelo Russell and him turning into an all-star, but at the same time, their head coach, I think, had a lot to do with that. So you have to give Kenny Atkinson some credit there, and I just wish I knew which players it was, because it's really bothering me as to why this happened right now. It's just very weird timing, coming off one of their best performances of the season. They were at home against the Spurs, and then you fire him. I mean, the Nets have had some very tough losses recently, so that might be a reason why. I mean, you think back to that home game against Orlando, which was a big one because they're fighting for the 7th seed with Orlando, and they blew a 19-point lead in the third quarter to lose that game at home, and that was a very tough loss. And then, the Heat game not a couple nights ago, but last Saturday, I think it was, and, Dinwiddie throws the ball out of bounds. I don't know how you blame Kenny Atkinson for that, but yeah. A lot of tough losses here. I'm trying to think which other ones. I mean, they had that blowout against Atlanta, so they looked awful in that game. So that's the type of game that can get a coach fired, but of course it happens a week and a half later, so that really made no sense to me. The timing is very weird. So apparently their new owner, Joe Tsai, made the call about firing Atkinson, so that tells you the amount of power this guy has in the organization now. And, luckily Sean Marks is still here, and there's, I guess, some rumors about maybe Tim Duncan coming here because Sean Marks worked with the Spurs, and maybe he tries to get Tim Duncan to be a head coach here, but I feel like that's a long shot. I've seen Tyronn Lue's name, and I would not be too excited about that. I mean, the thing is, New York fans do this all the time. I mean, I'm sure Nets fans aren't as bad, but New York fans are always like, oh, fire this guy, fire that guy. And me being somewhat logical, I'm always like, all right, well, who are you going to replace that guy with? And if the Nets replaced Kenny Atkinson with Tyronn Lue, I feel like that'd be a lateral to a negative move in the same way. I feel like that would not be a positive move, really. I don't think Ty Lue is that great of a coach, but We'll see. I really don't know who's going to be the coach next year. I know right now that Jacque Vaughn will be the coach the remainder of the season. I know Vaughn backed up Jason Kidd at one point when he was a player. I believe was a head coach with the Magic for a couple years, and it did not go so well there. But his roster wasn't that great either, so I guess it makes sense. But Jacque Vaughn seems like a pretty good guy, and maybe it works out better than what Kenny Atkinson was doing. But that's also a long shot in my opinion. I mean, the Nets have had some. I mean, I remember back to PJ Carlesimo. I don't know if that was the Avery Johnson year. I think it was the first year in Brooklyn where they fired Avery Johnson. I think late December it was, and then PJ Carlesimo comes in. The Nets play a lot better. The Nets had a pretty good record that first year in Brooklyn, and they played much better under Carlesimo. So maybe something like that happens, but the Nets just don't have that talent that they had the first year in Brooklyn. I mean, this team is. It's not great. I mean, they're starting Wilson Chandler at the 4 now. They finally benched Taurean Prince and didn't start him. And Prince actually had a good game last night, so I can't really get on him too much. But there's not much to work with. I mean, Spencer Dinwiddie, Karis LeVert's playing much better. I have to say that. LeVert almost had a triple-double last night, had 51, 52 points the other night, and was phenomenal. And there's just not much to work with. Jared Allen is just hit or miss every night. DeAndre Jordan could be hit or miss as well, and they don't have a star on this team. I mean, look, Kenny Atkinson had them in the 7th seed currently with 20 games of Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant not stepping foot on the floor. So, I mean, that's a pretty good record right there for what you're working with. And that's, I mean, they blew so many games this year. They could have won at least 5 to 10 more games and could have maybe been around the 5th seed if things were better. But, that's just me speculating, of course. But, yeah, it just sucks. And I obviously hope they get the 7th seed, and that's exactly what we need because you don't want to face the Bucks. That's just the first round exit waiting to happen. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I gotta say. I just feel bad for Kenny Atkinson because he was just such a big reason for the culture change here. And this the Nets were coming off some pretty bad head coaches, Lionel Hollins, Jay Kidd, and some other guys I can't remember. And yeah, I mean, he did, I think, a much better job than all those guys. And Kenny's been here for, I think, about 3 or 4 seasons, whatever it's been now, and that's a pretty long time for Nets coaches because Nets coaches don't last too long, apparently. So, I mean, I think Kenny will get a job pretty easily. There's been some rumors about him going to the Knicks maybe because the Knicks have a spot open after the season most likely, and I think because David Fizdale was fired. I forget who their coach's name is. It Mike Miller? Yeah, Mike Miller now, and he'll probably be gone at the end of the year, and they'll find a better coach at the end of the year. And I think Kenny Atkinson has some ties with the Knicks because he was there when Lynn Sanity was going on, so probably 10 years ago, but still he has some ties with the Knicks, so it's possible. But yeah, Atkinson should have a job for sure. Maybe he goes to the Cavaliers. I'm sure the Bulls will have a head coaching job open. So, I mean, Kenny Atkinson should have a decent selection as to where he wants to go. I don't think he'll be a one-and-done type coach. He's a good coach in my opinion. I mean, he's not perfect. He made some questionable decisions. I mean, last year was benching D'Angelo Russell in crunch time at some points, and then sometimes his substitutions are weird, and he'll play a 2-3 zone that gets exposed sometimes, and it's frustrating. So, I mean, he wasn't a perfect head coach. It's not like we fired Greg Popovich here or something like that, but at the same time, it is puzzling because I feel like there's not many better options out there than Atkinson right now. I mean, if there's a better coach than Atkinson, they're probably employed by another team. So for the Nets to just say, we'll fire this guy and find someone better next year, it's a bit weird. I just don't get it. So we'll see. It's a wait and see as to who they get next year. It's Jacque Vaughn the rest of the year, and I don't know much about Jacque Vaughn, but he seems like a good guy. He used to play for this team back in New Jersey. I mean, back when I was watching games in Jersey, he was backing up Jason Kidd. So, I mean, yeah, he's been around for a while. Obviously, I'm sure knows a lot about basketball, so we'll hope they're in good hands. And luckily, Sean Marks is still here. And yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say. So let me know in the comments how shocked you were, because I definitely was. And do you think it's the right move? And let me know who you think the coach will be next season. So thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.